Hello everybody, John Fulford here. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Link to the Discord in the description. Join our Discord. Send me a Spotify link to your song to be added on our sync playlist. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. This video is about the 3 levels of authenticity when dealing with world type music, with foreign type music, okay? If you know these principles and you're talking to a music supervisor, film director, ad executive, sync licensing person, publisher, label, whoever, you'll be able to succinctly, yet with a sense of detail and knowledge, convey to them what you can do, what you cannot do for their budget, okay? So we're gonna take Afrobeat as an example. Afrobeat is a catch-all term like rock music. There's multiple different genres within the Afrobeat landscape, but for purposes of this video, we're just gonna use Afrobeat. So there's 3 levels, okay? Level 1 is if the customer, like the music director, music supervisor, film director, ad executive, sync company, whoever, either has a tight timeline and or a lower budget, okay? This is level 1. Level 1 is you go online, you listen to some Afrobeat to get a general vibe, you download some pre-cleared loops, some synth patches, and you make a song. If you're living in Sherman Oaks or Phoenix or Massachusetts or Florida, you're learning about Afrobeat on the fly, online. You get some loops, you get some sounds, and you put together some Afrobeat cues. Okay, that would that's kind of like if a hip hop producer needs to make a rock instrumental, listens to some rock music, gets some loops, guitar loops, and puts it together. Okay, it could sound great, but it's kind of like a fish out of water situation. That doesn't mean it's not good music. It's just it's a fish out of water. Or like if a jazz musician makes a punk rock album, that could be cool. I'm not saying it doesn't sound good. I'm just saying it's a fish out of water. So if the film director goes, "This is a great punk rock album, tell me about it." And, "Well, I usually do jazz music, but I sat at home and made this punk rock album." That's level 1, okay? Level 2 is if there's a wider timeline and or a wider budget, you could produce the music, but find an authentic singer online, a friend of yours that is from a specific area. Like if you're a jazz musician and you found a punk rock singer or a punk rock drummer to lay down some authentic punk rock beats on a drum set or do some punk rock vocals, and you pieced it together with your fish out of waterness, so to speak, right? So there's a little bit of a story. There's a little bit of a story behind it. Oh yeah, this singer played in some punk rock bands back in the day, or this singer was in 2 Afrobeat ensembles here in town, and I hired them to come to the studio and do some vocals, or we're co-writing some stuff, and I laid down some loops and some beats with my drum machines and soft synths and things like that. So that's level 2, okay? Level 2 could get you 95% of the way there. That would be featured on like TV shows, some movies, things like that, right? So then there's level 3. Level 3 is if you have a music supervisor, film director, ad executive, yada, 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 a buyer or a licensee that needs authenticity. So if they're making a James Bond movie and James Bond is in Africa, and they need music on the jukebox at the bar where he meets the spy or whatever, they're gonna say, what country is James Bond in at this point? What region of the country? What year is it? Do they need something like a fad type music? Or do they want to key in on that specific era? Like if it was in the 50s, do they want like back in the day, Or do they want something more timeless where like it could last? It's not a snapshot of a specific era, okay? Like is it new metal for the 90s, or is it metal, which transcends like the last 40 some odd years? You see what I'm saying? It's keyed in. So when something is super keyed in, it's usually, not always, but it's usually the timeline is very open. It's a long timeline, long deadline, and or a somewhat bigger budget. So for that, the selling point for that is you lead with the authenticity. So before the supervisor, film director, ad executive, whoever listens to the music, the story precedes the music. I understand you need some music from Cameroon. So these songs were made by Cameroonian musicians. The language is, I think it's Portuguese in Cameroon, in addition to the African dialects. I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, it's Portuguese. Some songs are in Portuguese, which is spoken in Cameroon, but other songs are in some African dialects, with some English peppered in. It's reflective of the demographic of the specific country in Cameroon. Drill it down. Get very specific, and you lead with that. If it's level 1 or level 2, usually they listen to it first, and they go, "Oh, tell me about the music." Okay. "Oh, you did it in Sherman Oaks. Oh, well, we're on a tight timeline. This is great. You might want to meet some singers authentic to the region at some point, but this is great." And what's good about level 1 is I did a Russian song, level 1 Russian song years ago, and it got used. Then I met Russian singers and rappers online, mostly singers, I think all singers, online or some in person. I met this one singer outside of a Ralph's grocery store in LA, talking to her friend in Russian. I said, "What language is that?" "Russian." "I do music for TV. I had a placement on this TV show, Russian music. Here's my phone number. Would you like to work?" And one of those songs made it into the 2024 Cannes Film Fest grand prize winning film, Anora. If I just went up to them and said, "Oh, I do music," I mean, it is LA, everyone does something, right? But I was able to say I had music on a show that they could look up and verify. So level 1 is a good foundation to get to the level 2 and to get to the level 3. Level 3, again, is reserved for like either super detail-oriented productions where they want something specifically from the region, and or big blockbuster movies that if it's not region specific, you're going to have a bunch of fans saying it's not region specific, right? A big one is Hong Kong, where they speak mostly, well, now it's more and more Mandarin, but it's Cantonese. So if you go into a bar in Hong Kong and they're playing quote unquote Chinese music with a vocal, do they want Cantonese or do they want Mandarin? That's a question you got to ask for that level 3. Level 1, level 2, they might not care. Is it Mandarin or Chinese? Whatever you got. But if it's like, again, like a James Bond movie or something super highbrow, they might say Cantonese only or Mandarin only. If they're in Beijing, you're probably not going to pitch a Cantonese song unless it's in some sort of Cantonese environment within Beijing, right? Like a group of people from Hong Kong that are in Beijing in the cool like criminal warehouse listening to music from their hometown, which would be Cantonese. So these are things to think about when you're trying to get sync placements and kind of climb the ladder. So if you have African music or punk rock music with an authentic vocal, that's going to put you at the top of the pile. If you could give people level 2 music and level 3 music when they're looking for level 1, you should go to the top of the pile, because it's that extra authenticity that they don't need, but it gives them a story. When the music supervisor goes to the director or the producer and says, "We got this music. I know we need a punk rock song for this jukebox. We can't afford the big punk rock bands. We can't afford Rancid or Green Day if they want to go like pop punk, or NoFX. Well, NoFX probably wouldn't do it anyway, or whatever. But we got this song. The singer used to be in a band that used to open for NoFX. So that's a story. So if you go level 2, level 3 while they're looking for level 1, you'll be good. That's all for today. I hope that was informative. Music licensing podcast at gmail.com. This is John Fulford, and I'll see you next time.